Storm Chasers, welcome back to the show. Today we have Angel Sessions with us, and now I have to give her a proper introduction because not only does she has several albums, best-selling albums, not only is she an actress, singer, songwriter, I'm giving her the name of a voice of an angel because when you guys go and actually check out her music, her voice is literally angelic, all right? She is an urban gospel artist. She's also sung R&B. Her voice is limitless. We have to officially welcome Angel Sessions to the show today.
Thank you, Storm, for having me, and hello to everyone.
Absolutely, absolutely. I do have to ask you, you know, COVID has pretty much shut everything down in 2020. How have you and your family dealt with COVID this year?
You know, just trying to keep distance, as they say, and yes, it's been difficult, so we're not able to embrace and be together like we used to. So I do wear my mask, sterilize my hands, things like that. I do a lot of interviewing, you know, virtual concerts or interviewing online, things like that.
Right.
And, you know, just trying to just maintain and just pray and continuously that God will just bring us through this situation because I know it's been a rough 2020 year. First of all.
It really has. It really has. And actually, speaking of God, I know as I was doing research on you, and you don't hide it, you believe in God. Is it fair to say that you would identify as a Christian woman? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, God-fearing woman. You know, I don't like to put a label on it because I know a lot of people put labels, things like that. You can say Christian, of course, you know, but I'm just a God, you know, fearing woman that I, you know, trust the word of God, the Bible, you know, and what he says, things like that, and just let him lead and guide me. You know, I talk to him in prayer, you know, and he talks to me through his word as I read the Bible.
Nice. I think that's a beautiful thing because a lot of artists, especially today, like they won't, you never really know what they believe or where they stand. And so I just always wondered what it was like for someone who is God fearing to make it in this industry. Like I know you must have been through a lot, which we're going to get into later, but yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. You are from Louisville, Kentucky, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, Louisville. And so how did the little girl from Louisville get out to LA, end up going to Atlanta later to record records, work with Mary Wilson? Like take us where did this all begin?
Wow. It's going to be a teary-eyed story because my mom, who actually got me into this, is no longer here with me because I lost her in 2018 of colon cancer. So she was the one, she's an actress. She was an actress and a writer. She has 2 books out called Conflicting Spirits, and her name was Carolyn Murphy. You can either look at her, Carolyn Murphy. Conflicting Spirits was her book. She has 2 books published. She also did plays, things like that. So she always believed in me, and ever since I was a little girl, I've always loved to sing. So I've always wanted to be a singer. And each time I started writing songs too. So as I started writing songs, and I will always present it to my mom first, let her listen, and then she would entertain her fans, her friends, when she would, you know, bring them over and say, "Oh, my little girl can sing," and she would have me to, you know, sing for them, things like that. So to kind of bring me out of my shyness, that's how I started singing and singing jingles as I would hear commercials on TV. So yes, I was 6 years old, and I just had this desire to just want to get into the industry since I was a kid.
Since you were a little kid. And so I like how you said that singing helped you to come out of your shyness, because when you actually speak to different entertainers, or it really doesn't matter, people in the entertainment industry, period, a lot of them maybe had stuttering problems, they were really shy, or they would say that music even saved their life. And so I think that's beautiful how music actually helped you to really come out of your shell and show everybody what you was probably hide to and keep it to yourself. That gift you was keeping to yourself there.
Yes, absolutely. Because I don't know, I guess it was just something God put it in my heart, you know, because of course I grew up in the churches and I grew up listening to a lot of the gospel singers, things like that, and just grew up and listening to a lot of singers, even secular music. I love secular music. I love some of the artists, you know, that I listened to. My mom grew up listening to, like the Delphonics, you know, the Supremes, you know, Earth, Wind and Fire. And who would have known one day I would able to look at all these people my mom would listen to, you know. It's just a blessing, God. We'll get into that.
We'll get. I know. I can't wait. I gotta build it, but I can't wait. And so I have to ask you this too. I'm so interested in knowing, growing up as a little girl and knowing that you want to be a singer, and I'm sure you was probably singing all the time, like that was just that was your life. Did you fit in with the kids in your neighborhood, or were you kind of the odd one out? What was that like for you?
I was the odd one out. I was shy when I was a kid, and I used to get teased a lot because kids didn't like, if you have long hair, they pull your hair. You know, I just had some mean kids going to school, and I went to a school called Shiny Elementary School in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And they just weren't nice, and I was always the shy one. I was never loud and outgoing. I guess until I got in high school, I grew out of that and I changed. I had to grow more tougher skin, and people stopped messing with me and they started kind of looking at me like, oh, don't mess with her. But as I was a kid, I would just let people just bully me, because I just wanted at that time to be liked by kids. And why didn't kids like me at that time as a kid? I didn't understand. So my passion was always singing to God. That's what I used to start doing when I would just cry and sing to God about my problems, and started writing songs since I was 11 years old about everything I would go through.
And so, as you really turned your pain and you translated that into music, I have to ask you this: looking at a lot of the artists today and how a lot of people don't write their music, and so just asking your opinion, if you are a singer that doesn't write your music, can you still call yourself an artist? Like, where is the distinction when it comes to actually being able to write your own music?
Yes, you are still called an artist if you sing, because if you have talent, or if they, see that you have a potential, or if you have the package, the looks, and so on. And they have other producers and songwriters that can write songs for you. You are still considered an artist when you sing and they record songs on you. You're
Okay.
not a songwriter, that is, but you are an artist if you do sing, even if it's someone else's song.
Okay. I wanted your perspective on that because I talk to rappers and they when it comes to people that don't write their raps, they kind of almost like don't respect them. So I wanted that perspective too. I like that though. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about people that can't really sing that are posing as singers under like auto-tune and stuff?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. Back in the day, because the good thing is, I'm not trying to deviate from this, your question, but I'm from the old school, which is from the 90s, where I started my career in the late 90s up until now. So I had the best of both worlds. And back then, around that time, as you know, especially in the 90s, they were looking for singers, people with voices, even from the 80s and the 70s and so on. They look for talent,
Yes.
and even though there's a lot of wonderful talent out there today, there's a lot of great, independent artists there's some great major artists. So I'm definitely not going to knock any of the major artists, but then there's a lot of artists out there that just have, maybe they're just in it for the money and things like that. And so they just say, well, maybe you have the looks or you just want to get in for other reasons. They're in them and know they don't have the talent, and that they can just kind of fake it to make it, as they say, put them in the studio, put an auto tune on it, correct your voice, correct the perfect pitch, they call it, and make it sound as though you can sing, but it's all studio. And then when you get on stage, then they can tell the truth. If you can really do it live, because that's where you can wow the crowd, or do you not wow the crowd? That's how you know.
And you know what? And when you say that, I think of a specific artist. I'm not gonna say her name, but I've seen her live, and I was like, it's like everything else is there, but I'm like, oh, you're a studio singer. I'm like, oh, you are. Oh, okay. I'm like, well, thank God she's pretty. It works. Okay, so so once you decided that, look, I'm gonna actually do music as a career. Did your parents have any issues with that, or did they want you to have like a quote unquote regular job? Embrace Pangea is a black-owned health and wellness brand that has solidified themselves as being able to take care of your yoni. But guess what? They do more than just service your yoni. Yes, as a matter of fact, Embrace Pangea has products to cover you from head to toe, inside and out. And in particular, let me tell you about a couple products that I personally use. Number one is the herbal tooth powder that is better than any toothpaste that you will get over the counter. It will get your teeth clean and help your teeth to maintain a natural white shade. And in addition to that, the advanced botanical mouthwash is something that we all should have in our medicine cabinet. Now, when you look at a bottle like this with 25 potent herbs like echinacea, golden cell, don't laugh at me if I mispronounced that, you know what I meant. We need these natural ingredients in our mouth rinses so that we can fight tooth decay, gingivitis, all of that plaque, halitosis, and overall poor oral hygiene. Okay, so if you want to get a good clearance when you go to the dentist, get you some Embrace Pangea. And in addition to that, make sure you use my code STORM to get 10% off your order and check out today.
I was raised by my mom. I don't know my dad. So my mom always had, the desire for me to do what I wanted to do because, again, she's a writer. My mom is a writer, or was a writer. But she was a writer. And so when she saw me as a kid that wanted to sing, and I used to always run to her to sing these songs that I write, and she would always encourage me. I remember even asking my mom, is it okay if I sing R&B? Because I started out as an R&B artist, and she's like, as long as you sing it for God, as long as the songs are not degrading, disrespectful to other people, things like that, or hurtful. She said, I think there's nothing wrong with singing R&B. And so that's why I started writing a lot of songs that people can relate to.
Yes.
So I am actually, as you could say, an R&B and gospel artist. If you look at my profile on Google, it'll say R&B and gospel. But when I say gospel, it's urban gospel because my music still has a hint of R&B, meaning it's not traditional. I don't sing traditional gospel. My music is still like contemporary sound.
Yeah, like when I look, and I know that's a professional way to say it, but the way I translate it to people, look, her gospel is hip. So it's like, it's hip, it's not like grandma's records. This is like, oh no, I could just play this in a car. So I don't know. That's my favorite kind of gospel. That's just me personally.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I want to take you back a little bit, right? As you're out here hustling before you actually get your first record deal in 1998, you were traveling between the US and Guam. Absolutely. Singing. So talk about all of the hard work you put in to actually get you to the point of signing your first record deal.
Oh, thank you for asking. It was not easy at all. I remember when this was 1992, so this is where it all began. And I was looking for a manager because I didn't know anything about the industry. I wanted to get in it. So there was this woman named Debbie Gibson. She was married to Billy Gibson. He was the road manager of SWV, Beth Biv DeVoe, Madonna, and many other artists. So that's what made her wanted to get into the industry. But she didn't want to tie her name into his. So she started her own company called Majestic Management. And she lived outside of Los Angeles, California. And she was looking for a female artist. So she came to the Bay Area where I was in California, and she auditioned with 6 girls, and I was one of them. And so after she auditioned all 6 of us, she ended up choosing me. And the main reason why she chose me is because, 1, she said she liked my personality, and 2, because we're both from Louisville, Kentucky. And so she liked my talent, but she thought that other girls she thought were even better. It was something about their personality she just didn't click with. But she clicked with my personality because she did interview us and talk to us prior to us performing. And so that's how I started working with her. And I ended up working with her for a good 3 years. It was supposed to be a contract of 4, but it didn't work out simply because after 3 years, I'm the one who had the passion, who just really wanted to just do this, So, but I'm loyal, So when I met her, being loyal, if I met people in the Bay Area who wanted to work with me, I would present them to her. And each time I would present them to her, she used to get upset with me sometimes because she would say things like, stop calling me, stop bugging me about all these people that want to meet with me, but she thought they were like hood rats, because she lived in the upscale outside of Los Angeles. So she lived, she, had all this money, things like that. So she thought where I was from, it was at the bottom of the barrel because it was the Bay Area, you know. So she looked at Oakland, California as like, you know, dumps or whatever. So if I would meet people, she treated me as though these people were like beneath her. And so it used to hurt me a lot because I'm like, I'm just trying to be loyal. I did not want to go behind her back start working with people. But if I present them to her, she would say, stop doing that. You're wasting my time. You know, because she had talked to some of these people and she just felt like they were a waste of her time. So she would say, you know, don't call me, I'll call you. And it just, we started having issues here and that because I had many times had deals. I mean, I remember one time before there was The Voice and American Idol, we had Star Search, of course, but we didn't have any of these other shows. You know, we had what you call the Best of the West, Budweiser Best of the West competition. So you ever heard of Budweiser, the beer? You know, they put on this big event, and it was done by still my friend today, JJ. And he would put on this big event in Los Angeles, California. Any of the artists that ever performed there will remember this, you know. And so all the labels, Sony, MCA, you know, Universal, you know, Epic, Mercury, all the labels would go there to scout talent. And I had RCA Records that wanted to sign me. This was through Debbie Gibson one day. And RCA Records really wanted to sign me because because I auditioned in front of RCA, MCA, Universal, Sony, and one of the labels. There's 5 labels. And they
all the big boys.
Yeah, all the big boys were all around this table, and we had to audition first. And so I sung my original song called You Send Me Hanging. And that was done by my friend and I, the late O.G. Pierce, who produced This Is How We Do It with Montel Jordan. So he wrote the music to You Send Me Hanging, and I wrote the lyrics. And so when I got so excited, all the labels wanted me, but except one that really wanted to sign me was RCA. I was like, why can't they sign me? I was naive. I didn't understand. And my manager was like, well, you have to wow the crowd, she said. So they have this Budweiser Best of the West competition, and I had to audition. And I'm saying this story because, you know, there's some people today, they may say, well, how do you get on stage and perform and not get nervous? You can get nervous. I was new at that time. I have never performed in front of a big crowd. And this was like over 700-800 people. That's a big crowd to me. When I
You know, that is a big crowd.
You know, yeah. Now, I mean, since then I performed more crowds than then, but at that time I was new. So I've never done it before. And the guy, JJ, kept saying, now, you know, RCA is going to want to sign you. They're looking at you tonight. And he kept saying it over and over and over. And it was making me nervous, you know. So I was pacing back and forth. You know, my manager kept saying, relax, relax, you'll be all right. It was just what she thought. I was not all right. Because in my mind, like, I don't want to blow it, you know. And they had other acts, and these other acts were phenomenal. They were just relaxed. They can sing, they can blow. And then they put me on right after all those great acts. And all I can see is lights, cameras, and people sitting at the table with all the labels. And all I could think about is, oh, what are they thinking of me? My mind wasn't like ready. And so I performed that same song I auditioned for, and I blew it as I just was so nervous. And I remember in my mind crying and saying, you know, Lord, please let this be over with. And then towards the end of the song, I did okay. I came out of that, but it was too late because the beginning was like, oh, it's so shaky. I felt like I wanted to sink into the ground. That's how terrible I felt, you know. And RCA did not sign me, and I just remember crying to my mom and saying to my mom, you know, Mama, I blew it. RCA wanted to sign me, da 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 da. My manager, that manager I was telling you about, that because got so mad at me. Oh, you blew it. You blew it. RCA was gonna sign you, and you blew it. What happened? You know you can sing better than that girl. What happened to you? You know. And all I could do was cry. I didn't know what to say to her because I was just so hurt, you know, that I messed up and I blew it for her. But God blessed me to give me another opportunity. So 2 months later, I was able to come back and perform again. And then Mercury Records wanted to sign me. I had so many labels from then on that wanted to sign me, but we'll get into the story. There had a lot of obstacles in my way with different people in my life that kept blowing it.
But you know what though? But I think there's a theme here of redemption, because a lot of people would have quit after that. They've been like, forget it. I'm going to go back home. I'm just going to do whatever. You could have been like, I'm done with it. Like a lot of people give up after one failure, but they don't understand. Like you have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. You fall
Yeah.
down 9 times, you get up 10. Like that really makes the difference. I remember myself, I came down here and I was on a show with my mentor in front of like probably 15,000 people live watching, and was just so nervous, had no idea what was going on, wasn't looking at the right camera. It was so bad. But you just don't give up. You just don't give, especially when it's something that you love to do. So I like that you didn't quit.
Right. I couldn't give up. I felt like it in my heart because I was
Yeah.
so down, but in my mind I said, no, Angel, don't.
Yeah.
Because I knew that he didn't bring me this far to leave. So I said, I got to keep pushing.
I like that. Okay. So you ended up signing the record deal in 1998, though.
Yes, I met. There's so many sadness because in my life because this person passed away too. But his name is was Fred Pittman,
Okay.
and he was looking for an artist actually because he's a songwriter and he wrote this song called "She Was Never Heard." So I through a friend of mine who introduced me to him said, "Oh yeah, he's looking for artists and he's worked with Belmont Records, he's worked with Fantasy Records, and he's worked with so many other labels and so many wonderful legendary artists. He's looking for an artist and send him your stuff." So I'm like, okay. By this time, I had no longer worked with Debbie Gibson. I had told her I wanted out of the agreement. So I gave her a letter of, and her husband, make a long story short, Billy Gibson was upset with me. They were thinking that, I was trying to go behind her back and trying to go for somebody else. And that was not true at all. It's just I felt like she was stagnating my career, after 3 years. And every time an opportunity would come my way with labels wanted to sign me, it was like, what happened? Nothing came out of that. And it was the ball was always in her court.
Yeah.
So as I moved on, a couple of years later, I ended up meeting this producer named Fred Pittman through a friend. I submit my package to him. At the time, he lived in Vegas. So it took him about a week to get to it. And then finally, he called me a week later and he said he fell in love with my voice and he said he wanted to meet me. So he flew me to Vegas and flew me into the studio after we met and taught me the song called She Was Never Heard. So he wanted to put this song out. If the song does well, he'll do an album on it. So although I'm a songwriter, I ended up singing his song. I didn't mind. I just wanted an opportunity. So I ended up singing his song, and he went to H.B.P Records out of Atlanta, Georgia. At the time, his name was President John Abbey. So
Okay.
he went to H.B.P Records, and they heard the record, and they said, "We want an album on Angel Sessions. We don't just want a single. We want an album."
Nice.
So I had already had 500 songs I recorded prior to that, and I know we're skipping because I didn't get a chance to talk about Guam because I did go to Guam prior to that. Before I met Fred, I did a lot of working on my own. I would, perform at the Grammys pre-party 3 or 4 times. That was before the Clyde David, and I mean, I'm just taking a detour right quick. Her
No,
name was
you're fine.
Bonnie Sweeting. Her name was Bonnie Sweeting, and she was well known in the industry, and she would always put on the Grammys pre-party in Los Angeles, California. So I met her through a friend of mine, so I'm still friends with today, named Lauren Reed. And he told her about me. And so she lived in Sacramento, California. And so I met with her and she said, I will let you perform, Angel, as long as you sing My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. I always had to sing this song for her.
Oh, that's a beautiful
At the
song.
Grammys pre-party. Yeah. So I
Oh.
would sing. So I would always sing My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion. And I was able to perform on the same stage with James Brown, Tina Marie, and so many wonderful people I met, Tracy Evans, you know, all kind of people I met, so many people at the Grammy party because I was able to do this for 3 years.
Nice.
Each year she would invite me, and then she would allow me to sing my own original after I sang that. And this was all prior to me getting my first deal. I'm working hard to do all that. So finally, when I met with Red Pittman, um, a week later, after he heard my voice, he flew me in. We sang the song. Ichiban wanted an album. I had 500 songs that I'd written. And so we had to go in and look up my category and say, well, okay, which songs we felt fit best to put on this album. We picked about 7 of my originals, and then 5 we picked some of his producers he knew. So one of them was Andre Simone. He
Okay.
worked with Prince, and Prince and the Revolution. And he also produced for Jolie Watley. All those great songs. I'm looking for a good love. All her hits that was done by Andre Simone. So he worked on my first album with me. So he did about that, pick a song for me, and then Preston Glass, who worked with Nord and Michael Warden. And they produced for Mariah Carey's first album, Vision of Love, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, Aretha Franklin. Preston Glass worked with so many great artists. I mean, so many. His style is tremendous with all these name acts that he has written songs for.
Yeah.
And so he wrote about 3 songs on my album, on the first album. And then I did a duet on my first album with L.G. Reynolds from the Dramatic. So we did a duet called Hello Love on my very first album. So 7 songs were mine, and then about 5 of them. And that was Introducing Angel, that was released in 1998 on H.B.P. Records.
And so once you completed that album, you know, you've been working for several years. You're really working your whole life to get to this point, but especially going back and forth from going to the pre-Grammys, doing a lot of work for free, to be honest, to get your name out there. Tell me about the first time you heard your song on the radio. Yamaya's Gift is a brand that specializes in medicinal herbs and all natural supplements to help alleviate a lot of conditions that Americans suffer from, okay? Now, Yamaya's Gift got products to help you with that hypertension, to help speed up that weight loss, get rid of them fibroids, as well as help alleviate the symptoms of that diabetes. Oh yeah, that sugar is real bad. So now with Yamaya's Gift, you get a lot of gifts, but the best gift that anyone could ever give you is the ability to heal thyself from the inside out with products like elderberry syrup to help keep that immunity in check, because we all fighting Miss Rona. We all trying to windmill her ass up out of our lives. But one of my personal favorites, as a matter of fact, 2 of my personal favorite products with Yamaya's Gift is the all natural honey and the tea that's for men. And the reason why I like those products is because if you are somebody with a low sex drive, if you need a boost in the bedroom, and if you are ready to get Brian Pumpered, Lexington Steeled all night long, then just put some of that in your man's cup and you will be on your way to a happier, healthy marriage, all right? Now, place your orders today, whether you need your immunity taken care of, you're trying to lose some weight, you're trying to get rid of that sugar, the diabetes, or you're just trying to bust a nut, okay? Order her shit at www.yamayasgift.com.
When I heard my song on the radio, this was like around 1998 when I was promoting hard, because when I was with Ichiban, Brad Pittman also started his label Pitmobile Records. So it was Pitmobile Records / Ichiban Records. And he had me, you know, teaching me the business, to call the radio station to just tell them you're the artist and had you received my package. We were sending, you know, all the P1 packages all to all the radio stations to make sure they got it to play the single She Was Never Heard. And they were playing it. I got picked up on over 80 BDS stations, and they were so overwhelmed and so excited that I couldn't believe that I called it, treating me like a star. I didn't look at me like it was anything. And I was so happy that they was, you know, gravitated and just so excited to hear me call them and ask have they gotten my song. And so I was ecstatic and was really happy to hear my record for the first time on the radio, you know, and people accepting it, radio stations calling. They wanted me to go to the summer jams and to perform. And it's like it was taking off so fast for me. And I was overly excited. But at that time, being with Fred Pittman, he didn't have a lot of money. You see what I'm saying? So even though Ichiban I was signed with them, but it was under Pitmobile Records. So the finance had to actually come from him, not Ichiban. Ichiban really was mainly distributing the album, but the finance, as far as trying to get it on radio, trying to get, you know, my songs on BET, my video, and so on and so forth, financially, he had to finance that, and he didn't really have the proper finance to really get it to where it needed to go. But they did step in and do some things for him because they were friends. But the record company folded in 1999 because you know, John Abbey was married, and I guess him and his wife broke up, and they owned all that, and so the label folded, and I was out of the deal at that time.
And isn't it something how, like, when it comes to the industry and these deals where you can sit there and you can think everything's good, and it's like, oh, by the way, it folded. Yeah, you don't have a deal now. It's like, okay, well, what do I do? Like, we had all this momentum going, and it's kind of like now you're starting over again. So, I mean, people knew you at least, but that must have been discouraging. But once again, you still didn't give up.
Yeah, it was very discouraging. I remember even, I mean, at night, no one saw my tears, but God did. But I cried a lot because I couldn't believe. I was like, I worked so hard ever since a kid, wanted to get into this. And what do I do? So at that time, Fred knew John, he knew Phil Jones, um, the late Phil Jones. He used to work with Motown Records, and he moved over to Fantasy out of Berkeley, California. And
Okay.
so they reactivated a label called Stax Vote Records. Have you ever heard of Stax Vote Records? And so they reactivated that. And Fred had, lots of many friends in the industry. And so they asked Fred, if you can get these legendary acts, we just want to do one album on them. We will pick up Angel's second album because what we did, Fred and I, we utilized the studio of Ichiban and cut a new album,
Smart. That was smart
to
to do.
stop it for another deal. We really wanted to try to take it to Sony and Universal. That's what I wanted. I wanted to, at that time, to be signed to a major, and he did try to take it to some of these people, but he went to Fantasy because he felt like, well, that's probably almost a good deal because I know Phil Jones. So he went to Phil Jones, but little did I know at that time, they don't promote and market artists like a major label do.
No.
They only market, record companies. Like what they do is they do catalogs. Like they owned 125 other labels and buy off their masters and own their catalogs and just keep replenishing, re-putting out
Oh.
new music from Otis Williams or whoever. That's how
So
they make all the
that was not a good place
it
for
was
you
not a
then.
good deal. Exactly. But I didn't know that because I was naive, So he did it for the money. And I thought that he was doing it to help me, but he did it for himself. And I learned a lot of things later on that really, I just didn't know. So he put it out there. He went to them, and they ended up working with the Dells, the Delphonics, Brenda Holloway, Frida Payne, and of course myself that I was new, and I think that's it. If I can remember. And maybe a couple other people that were from other places. And so I had to sign an agreement that they can release the new material that we had already cut for them to be able to take on the master and put it out. And so that's what I did. And I had no idea at that time that I really wasn't signed exclusively to Stax Vote Records. I thought I was.
Who were
So
you signed to?
nobody. I was always a free agent and I just didn't know it. That's what Phil Jones told me. And I didn't learn this until later. So during that time, I remember prior to us going to Fantasy, um, Fred and I used to go to M.C.A records all the time. And he knew the A&R there. And she really loved my voice a lot. But they weren't signing new acts. She ended up, I think M.C.A folded and she ended up leaving and she went to New York to another major label. I'm not sure what label that was. And she remembered me. So she got in contact with Fred and said to him that she wanted to work with me, and sign me. But at that time, he told her I was already taken. I was already working with Sax Vote Records. So I did. So I never. And I remember him telling me this, and he said, "Yeah, she wanted to sign you, and but I told her you're already signed with back Sax Vote." So I'm like, "Oh, okay," But I didn't know until later when you know I moved on, and him and I depart ways around 2000 when I went to Phil Jones for this newer project I was working on because I had gotten two new managers and we started recording some more new materials. And this material by this time, because I went back to my old friend OG Pierce, who wrote, that did the song "This How We Do It," and him and
Right.
I we have been friends since '94, and we cut a whole new album. My manager, the new manager I had gotten with, who's a good friend of mine, named Mark Thompson, I he paid for the project, and we recorded about I think 13 songs,
Okay.
but the songs were just sitting. We didn't do anything with it. We were supposed to put it out on an independent label that they were going to start up, but it just never transpired. It never happened. So I had all the songs I wrote. because I wrote, write and arrange all my vocals, things like that. And it was just sitting. So I remember going to Phil Jones and saying, can you put this out? He's like, Angel, we're not a label like that. I said, you're not? He's like, no. He said, we're just catalog label. What we do is we just release catalogs, and that's it. He said, I don't even know why Fred took you here. He said, well, I don't even know why Fred brought you here. He said, you should have been with Sony or Universal. You are an artist like an Aaliyah or someone. He said, you don't really, you never belong here. He said, but I'll do whatever I can and I'll vouch for you. He said, if anybody that want to work with you, I'll tell them, and vouch for you. And I said, okay. So I just moved on and held on to that material. And I ended up releasing that material around 2017, years later, because they were such great songs, never been released, never been heard. And I wanted to give my fans something to listen to. So I ended up releasing it in 2017.
You know, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just like, I'm upset for you. I know that was years ago. You're over it now. Like, I know, but I'm just like, why would he do why? Like you said, for the money, but it's just like, okay, this is what gets me about this industry. If you see this situation isn't right, pull me to the side and say something, like, you're an adult, so it's like the woman in New York that wanted to sign you. Why didn't she just like call you directly? Or I don't know. Okay.
Yeah. She didn't have, probably because she didn't have my number. I wish she did. I sure wish she did, but she didn't have my number. She had his number, and he wasn't my manager, but he acted as my manager because there was a lot of people that wanted to work with me. Pete Escovedo, wanted to work with me. Maurice White, although I did work with Maurice White, of Earth, Wind, and Fire, and that was through a good friend of mine named, Preston Glass. I did work with him, but he wanted to do more work with me than just that one time we worked together.
Yeah.
But he, at that time working with Fred, I wasn't allowed to work with so many other people that wanted to work with me,
So how did you let go of that resentment? Because we've seen a lot of artists get stuck in that and they're never really able to move forward because they've been done wrong. Well, a couple times for you. So how did you move past that personally?
It was not easy because me being a people person and me being loyal to people, and sometimes they don't always see eye to eye, it was difficult. And the reason why I say that because what happened between Fred and I that made us fall out, and not be able to work together is because we were going to do a big Vegas show, me and the Dells, and Fantasy Records paid for it. And so they already had bought the billboard with our names flashing, the Dells featuring Angel Sessions. They had already did the radio campaign. So it was all broadcast all over the radio of us coming to do this big show. But the biggest show, the biggest people, of course, were the Dells. People knew who the Dells were, but they didn't know who I was, So it was just featuring me. Of course, the Dells wanted to do the show, but they had wanted to also make sure that they were going to get their money up front before they do it. And once it was time and it came down to it, only half the money was there, not all the money. And so they ended up out. And there was no show without the Dells. I felt like, can I do it? He's like, no one knows you like that, Angel. We can't pull the show off with just you alone. So it made him so hurt that I didn't hear from him in 3 months. For 3 months, I didn't hear from him. He just fell out. He stopped calling. He stopped, contacting me. I had nowhere. Love Ride was new at that time. Fantasy Records just released it under Vote Records, that group. And I'm like, we released a song called Get It Right, which I co-wrote with someone else. I forget his name, who wrote, he co-wrote the song No Scrubs by TLC. So him and I wrote the song called Get It Right on the second album. But I didn't hear from Fred. So after 3 months, what I did, I just ended up he wasn't my manager anyway, he was my producer, but acting as my representative. So I ended up getting another manager, and saying, I don't want to sit on my career. I'm just sitting. I don't know what to do. I've been, so I explained the whole situation to my manager, who was my friend then. And they ended up calling Fantasy Records and speaking to Phil Jones and explaining to them who they were. But Phil Jones didn't know. He was like, I thought Fred was your manager, So he ended up calling Fred, saying to Fred, hey, some dude called up asking for Angel Sessions, saying that they're her manager. I thought you was her manager. Who are these people? And that made him get angry with me. He was upset with me. And so I tried to explain to him. I said, I would never do this behind your back. I said, because you were never my manager. You were my representative. You were my producer, but not my manager. I didn't, and I didn't, and I kept saying I wanted to get manager. He said, you don't need a manager at the time. You got me. So, but when he disappeared, I was left alone. So I ended up getting
Yeah.
somebody else. And then he came back and he was upset with me. He finding out that you know, I got these other two managers, and then he didn't want to work with me no more. And he said that he was done with me, and he got angry with me. And even though I tried to explain to him, like, I didn't want him to be angry with me because I went through the same thing with my first former manager, Debbie Gibson, you know. And yes, I was very hurt by that situation. So I had to just move on. And that's when I ended up getting with my other two former managers and recorded that album and went to Phil Jones to try to get it put out. And Phil Jones said, that's when he told me, you were never signed with us. You were always a free agent. You could have signed with anybody. And I'm like, and my heart dropped. I'm like, all these years, I didn't know that. I'm thinking I was a fine artist, and all it was is that they just released the album and they had, you know, consent to do so. But I was never their artist. I could have signed with anyone. He said, you belong to someone like a Sony or someone or MCA, not someone like us. I don't even know where it brought you to us. So that's what happened. And yeah.
Wow. And I love how Fred said, you don't need a manager, you got me. But then when something didn't go his way, he disappeared.
Yeah.
So you didn't really have him. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have him because when he got so upset because the Dales pulled out and all that money, thousands of dollars, that fantasy, that's why they were angry with him because they spent all this money for this advertisement that never happened. So the show never happened and I couldn't pull it off by myself. You know, I understood. I was very good friends with Fred. I understood him, and I was hurt for him because I knew he really wanted this to happen. It's just that it
Right.
didn't happen because the Dales didn't want to perform without all the money up front. And that's understandable. But it hurt me too because now I was looking forward to this. It was going to boost my career. And it
Yeah.
just, every time something happens good, boom, it just, something happened. I forgot to tell you this other story too. I don't mean to be all over the map.
You're
But
fine.
prior to meeting Fred Pittman, I had another manager. After Debbie Gibson, after me and her, this was, and this was 1996 when me and her stopped working together. I was performing and I auditioned for another manager who had a deal with Atlantic Records. He was going to start his own label and merge with Atlantic Records. His name was Neil Backseat.
Okay.
He was a drummer of Marvin Gaye. So he's been in the industry for a very long time. So he was looking for act. And I auditioned and he talked to me after the audition and said he wanted to work with me. I was super excited. This was right after Debbie Gibson. And I was already overwhelmed because I really, really, really did not want that relationship to end. I always wanted this, no matter if we can't work together, that's fine. I always still want to remain close friends or stay friends with this person.
Yes.
But it's always once they don't want to work with you, they don't want to be friends with you or nothing. And I never understood that. So I have not spoken to her since 1996. So when I met him and he wanted to work with me after the audition, I was so happy. So what happened was, we were gonna do an album. I already had 500 songs I already recorded. He wanted to recut some of those songs. So he did a deal with a friend of mine, and the deal never came through because on the day of him to come to pick me up to go and record this song in order to get our album going and get it off the ground,
Okay.
I was only signed with him for 4 months. He got killed in a car accident on his way to come get me.
Oh.
And I waited and waited and waited, call, no answer. This was 1997. And so I remember we had a meeting that night with, supposedly my manager, me, and a few other team people that were in our circle. We met at the club where we're all supposed to meet with Neil Baptiste. I still haven't heard from him, but in my heart, I knew something went wrong. I knew something happened. I just felt like something happened to him. So I ended up calling his house, and his fiance said, very rude. She was very angry with me for nothing, because she was angry with the situation. She said, Nail's dead. And she hung up the phone. And that I just sent me to a shock. So everybody was like, why is Angel crying? So the people at the table were like, why are you crying? Why are you crying? And I started crying. I said, Nail's dead. Nail's dead, And they were like, what happened? So he got in a car accident, But his fiance, I don't know what happened, but I know that she was upset. And I didn't find out until hours later during the time of our interview, not interview, but meeting, that he died in a car crash on his way to come get me so we can go into the studio to begin this project that we're supposed to be giving to Atlantic Records. Never happened.
And so she probably also held animosity towards you, thinking,
thank you.
If he wasn't going to come and pick you up.
Get me. He was mad at me because he was on his way to come get me. And he had a nice, really fast yellow car, and he liked to drive fast. And the story was, I heard that they hit his tail, spun his car around, and his body flew out the window shield into the other side of the traffic and got hit. And also, he was coming into like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in cash money, and he had some kind of deal. I don't know the whole story, and he had some kind of deal with somebody in Panama. I'm sorry, I'm not pronouncing it right. Country, and I don't know if this had some conspiracy to do with why he got killed. I don't know, but he was coming into millions because he had told me, you would never have to work a day in your life, Angel, because he was coming to these millions of dollars, and he was going to be doing a deal, joint venture with Atlantic, and so I was excited. But when he got killed, that killed my dream. Also, it's like it was always when I was so close yet so far. Something always happened.
Do you think God was saving you from something with all those tragedies?
I believe so. As I look back later, I said, I believe I now understand because of social media, because of things now that you can now learn, that if God wanted these things to happen for me, it could have happened, that he did not allow it for reasons, because who would have known where I would have been had these things happened. And I, got signed, to the labels that wanted to sign me. I would have not known where I would be right now because I was very young and naive. All I knew was I just wanted to sing. I just wanted to be signed. But I didn't know much about the business at that time. I had to learn it years later.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's heavy. That feels heavy.
Yeah. So after Phil Jones told me that I was a free agent, the album we had with, that I had recorded with my two other managers, that didn't happen. So we ended up, the good thing is we ended up staying friends. However, the project never got put out. So because the project never got put out, I was on my own. And that's when I had to go on my own independently. And that's how I became an independent, and had to learn how to get my feet wet and reinvent my wheel and start all over again and re-record more new songs and learn this thing called the internet.
Yes.
And this was like around 2005, which of course at the time Facebook and things wasn't popular because I didn't even get on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and any of that until towards the end of 2011, 2012.
Okay.
When I really started to get my feet wet and reinventing myself and learn the business and learn to be a businesswoman, not just an artist, and that's when things started taking off for me.
Wow. And honestly, I always tell people too, like, you learn what you're made of when your back is put up against the wall. And with all those tragedies, you're like, you know what? I'm going to take this into my own hands because, well, I'm trusting people and they're not really even handling me right. So So after that situation, did you go right into touring with SCAP? Maybe you guys call it SEEP, the School Entertainment Activity Program.
The school entertainment activity program, SEAP, that was around the time I was still working with Fred Pittman at that time, because I had
Oh,
put out Love Live off the vote record, stack of vote records. And so that was in Los Angeles, California, whereas what they do is instead of trying to get radio play, you get consumer buyers. All the kids will come during recess time, during their lunch hour time, come into the cafeteria and watch their favorite artists perform. So people like Destiny's Child, Brandy, Usher, myself, um, um, there's so many people. How many people? I'm trying to name. There's so many people who have done it. Did I say Brandy already? I said Brandy, and why can't I think this name? What's the guy that played in Fast and Furious?
Tyrese. Oh, Tyrese. Yeah.
Tyrese, yes, he was one of them. And so many people that did the SEAP School Entertainment Activity Program to perform, and sell your record on demand. And so that's what I did. And all the kids, I will always open up with singing "I Will Always Love You" by Whitney Houston, and then perform one of
Okay.
my songs off Love Right album, and get these kids to buy my music things. And so that's and it did well. They were around for 6 7 years until they folded. So yeah, all the acts from all the major labels that were all part of it, you know,
Nice. That's
Britney
actually
Spears, Christina Aguilera, all of them.
nice. That's actually a really cool program. And so that's a really cool program. They need to bring stuff like that back. Well, once we can actually be in the same room together again, if that ever happens. So while you're working, grinding, um, hitting all these obstacles in your career, were you able to maintain a love life? Like how did you juggle both, or were you able to at all?
Yeah, I have, I still had a family. I have 2 kids, things like that. And so, and I have a son named Anthony and my daughter Shardella. And Shardella, who is now my artist, and she's also a recording artist, and she's an R&B artist, and she's a wonderful singer. I was going to get into that later, um, because I have a long story to tell you about that. As far as when I started my girl group called One Unity, it's a story that I wanted to share with you. That's why I said you're the first that's getting exclusive, but yeah, it was a deep story, because I worked so hard for my daughter. I had to put my career on hold. I was juggling between touring with Mary Wilson, which I'll get into that,
Yes.
working with my girl group, who almost had a deal with Sony. And I had just graduated from, because I went back to school for a while. I went to the dentistry school to be a dental assistant, um, for about I was still doing my music for around 10 years, starting in 2003, because by this time, after me and Fred Pittman, we were not working together no more. I decided to go back to school and get into the dentistry and just wanted to work with people with beautiful smiles, things like that. And, you know, fell in love with working in the dentistry for a while as the administrator and
Nice.
the assistant, while still working and doing my music on the side. So I was
Okay.
doing that, you know, until 2004, when I graduated from school for dentistry. And on the same day, I got the gig with Mary Wilson. And I got that gig through my friend Karen Newman, who had been touring with Mary Wilson for a while. I met Mary Wilson back in 1999 when she was going to do the new Supreme. And she was going to put the three girls together, I guess, along with herself. And what happened was she was going to do this big show. If you remember in 1999, her and Diana Ross and the other young lady from the Supremes were going to reunite and do a big show. And they had a
Mm-hmm.
fallout because of the money aspect. And they didn't get a chance to come together. So they did the show, but Mary Wilson didn't do it. It was by Diana Ross and the other two. Mary Wilson didn't get a chance to. So the putting together of the Supremes never happened at that time. So I was blessed to be able to meet her again in 2004 because it was Karen, another lady who they ended up getting rid of, who was a soprano singer. And so Karen said to Mary, "You really got to meet my friend." Oh, actually, she told it to her manager, Angel Sessions. She's a really great singer. She's a soprano. She'd be perfect, to fit this and take this, this role. So he said, "Well, okay, give me her number." So he called me and he heard my music, Love Ride, and he fell in love with my voice. He said, "You'll be perfect." He said, "I want you to meet Mary Wilson. I'm going to fly you in. I'm going to let you meet her, in
Okay.
Vegas." Of course, I was ecstatic. Of course, I was excited. So even though I was at that time, I just started my girl group. I'm going to get into that. I was so happy to be working with Mary Wilson. He didn't want to work with her, the Supreme, you know. And
Exactly.
okay,
I would be too.
so I had to sign an agreement that I would never start another Supreme. I would not, because my goal was to get my name out there and my music. I just was happy to work with her to use as part of my resume that I was able to work with her. So I toured with Mary Wilson around the country and was able to work with her while working with my girl group. You know, but we eventually did not continue working together after I toured with her for about a few months of touring with her, because I had a girl group and I was very close to getting them a deal. And so I talked to the manager of Mary Wilson's manager. All I did was, because I'm the manager of my girl group, all I did, and I had two girls. I had four girls. I had my daughter Shardella, my niece Jessica White, and two other young ladies. You
Okay.
know, and I had wore all these hats. I'm the producer. I produced all their records for them. I write all their songs for them as a songwriter. I manage them. I'm an auntie. I'm a mom. I'm a friend. And I'm wearing all these hats. And I have my own career. And then I'm touring with Mary Wilson. So I'm
That's a
juggling,
lot.
trying to do all this at the same time. You know. And so at that time of trying to do it, it was not easy because number one, my girls at the time were young. My kid was only like 12 years old, at that time. And the other kids' parents kept getting in the way. They were jealous because I kept having to switch girls 4 or 5 times, retake new pictures, try to get my girl group off the ground. They were called One Unity. I even had a one manager who was managing JoJo. You heard the singer JoJo, right?
I love JoJo.
Yeah. So her manager called me and they liked my song called Bump that I wrote. And he wanted this song for JoJo. But I was so bad, I was so itchy trying to get a deal from my girl group. I didn't want to give up any of the songs at that time for my girls to give them an opportunity. So and he wasn't offering any money. He wanted me to just give the song to him and I get paid on the back end.
No.
you know, exactly. So I'm like, I don't want to do that. Just, how do I know if you even gonna pay me? So I didn't want to do it, and I didn't get the songs up because I really wanted this for my girl. And so they were very close to getting signed with Sony. They auditioned and everything, but they blew it because they weren't ready, and it didn't happen. However, that's when I ended up still working with my daughter and one other young lady that was in it. Um, Wait a minute, let me try to get the story together. It's so long ago. I had my daughter and this other young lady first. Her, I think it's
Okay.
doesn't matter. And before I had my niece and the other two girls, it ended up being four girls. So in the beginning, it was just two girls, you know. And around the time when I was in school, during going to school in the dentistry, I had a friend named Michael. His name was Michael. I think Michael Powell. I think that was his name. And he was not my manager, but he was, representing me because he said, "I really love your music." So he met me. We had a meeting in Los Angeles. This was around 2003. And he said, "What I want to do is take your music, this is the music I did with me and OG Peers, and shop it to all the majors. I want to do a showcase on you." I didn't know that he spent, I think, $6,000 to put on a 10-week showcase for me. He didn't
Oh,
conversate and tell me that.
okay.
He did that on his own. So all he told me to do is just don't worry about the business side. Just get your background dancers, get your singers, and just get ready and be prepared. So I was excited. I got my background dancers, I got my singers. I'm still juggling with my girl group. And it didn't happen because another friend of mine said, hey, somebody, you know, they wanted to meet with me. Their name was Renee and George. George Smith. He was the guy who was signed to Married to Devils.
Okay.
And manager of Bobby Brown. He and his wife wanted to work with me. I was already working with Michael Powell. Again, as I tell you, I'm very faithful to who I work with. So I told Renee and George, I said, I want you to meet with Michael Powell because I don't want to cut him out. You know, I said, he's not my manager, but he's my representative because I asked him to be my representative because I had already done a lot of stuff on my own. I'm a hardworking person. So I had got my own self an audition with a lot of labels in San Francisco, California. I auditioned, I performed, and I had Motown Records that were looking to sign me at that time. And so I asked him to represent me as my manager, although we didn't have any paperwork. So, but I'm the one that got that deal with Motown, not him. And so once that happened, when I met with Renee and George, I told her this, and she said, well, I said, I want you guys to meet with him. So she said, let's bring him up. Let's all meet together. I'm going to call him. Here's his number. Something happened with that conversation because they started to, you know, not fall out. And she started saying, well, you know, Michael, you are not Angel's manager. And he said, well, I spent $6,000 on, I spent $14,000 on him. He upped it from 6 to 14. I spent all this money on her. And if you want her, you're going to pay me $14,000 and you can have her. So he was trying to sell me out. All this I did not know until I walked into her studio and she said, he's on the phone, Angel. Don't say nothing. I'm going to put him on the speaker. Said, okay. So I heard him say, you know, well, you can have Angel if you want her, but I want my $14,000. If you don't give me my $14,000, I'm suing. And you can have her. So he was selling me out. So of course I'm like her. She said, he doesn't care nothing about you, Angel. Said the material that he was shopping to all the labels, remember, he didn't pay for that.
Right.
I had those albums. I already paid for that through my former manager. He didn't pay for nothing. All he paid for was that 10-week show that he did. He pressed up some CDs. He pressed up some T-shirts. And he was standing to make a lot of money off it. And I'm naive then. I didn't understand. But I was trying to get him and Renee and George to work together. And that fell off. So that's what made me start working with Renee and George. That's how they became part of my life. This is where my girl group comes in. So I was kind of glad. I was hurt because I was like, wow, I really trusted this guy, Michael Powell. I thought things were cool. I thought we were all able to work together. Then they have an argument between him and Renee and George. And then I found out he's trying to sell me out and trying to charge them 14 grand when he only paid 6 grand. And my name was not on that contract. It was between him and these people in Los Angeles. And he tried to make us pay for it if she wanted to work with me. It was a mess, a hot mess.
That's a whole, and you didn't ask him to do that. Like he did that on his own.
Exactly. So he stopped talking to me as though I did something wrong, and he blew my deal with Motown. He told Motown, I'm no longer still representing Angel Sessions. I don't know what he said to them. So when I ended up calling the guy that I was supposed to be all this time in contact with, the president of that, I don't know if he's the president or what position he played at that time, to call him, they wouldn't return my calls because he told them he was my manager, but he really wasn't. I just had him representing me at the time to have somebody, because you know labels don't want to talk to the artist; they want to talk to someone representing.
Yes,
So,
yes,
and I
they
felt
don't
like
want
it's
to deal
always been
directly with you. Yes, yes.
exactly. They never want to deal direct with the artist. That's why I needed someone to represent me. So I asked him, please be that standby. But they thought he was, and so he blew that deal for me because I don't know what he said to them, but caused them not to return my call. So that got me to working with Renee and George. And so they wanted to sign me. They said, oh, yeah, you know, they wanted their next Whitney Houston singer, you know, and so they wanted to sign me. All seemed to be well until I told them about, you know, and at that time, I was then married, you know, to my daughter's dad. We're not married anymore. But at that time, we all were trying to work together with Renee and George. And they said to my ex-husband, we don't want to talk to Angel. We want to talk to you. I want to work with the girls. But Angel's been in the business by this time. She's been in the business too long. She knows too much. So we're going to work with you and we want to talk to you and not her. He said, but you can't work with me without Angel because she put the girl group together. This is her girl group, and they're like, I don't know what they said, but this is what my husband at that time told me. And so, of course, I was very hurt. So things started going downhill for me with this situation. Whereas
Okay.
before I thought they were going up and up, that's when I started to learn things that are really, here I go again, situations. Like every time when I'm this close, I'm yet so far. And it
Yeah.
really hurt me because the fact that they wanted to work with my girl group and because they had leverage because, she had worked with Warner Brothers. She was an attorney at one time. This is George Smith, who was with Pebbles, married to Pebbles and, Bobby Brown's first album, Don't Be Cruel. He was his manager his name was on that album. You know, they knew a lot of people in the industry and who did I know? I didn't know anybody,
Right.
so I trusted them. And so when they wanted to work with my girl group without me, that was a problem between me and him, and it started coming between me and my then husband. That's how me and him started having bump heads. Him and I started having fights. Him and I started pulling apart. You
Yeah.
know, eventually we divorced. Because that was a really messy situation. And them trying to take my daughter and my girl group away. And so once that situation folded, and I broke free from all that mess, I told my daughter, I'm not giving up on you. I'm going to work with you by yourself, you know. So she became a solo artist from that day forth. And she's a phenomenal singer. Her name is Chardella Sessions. I would love for you to listen to her, check her out, listen to her music, and hopefully maybe she can
Yeah.
have an interview with you. She's phenomenal. She's signed to Atlas Lee Entertainment. That's my label now with my two founding partners, Rodney Cruz and Demetrius Gidry. But that's another story. We'll get into that. But this situation, it just kept being a whole lot of obstacles in my way that prevented me from getting to where I was trying to go, where there was a record deal, somebody blocked it. I think I was getting ready to tell you about Nailback Pete. I'm sorry, I'm venting back again because
That's
the
okay.
manager I told you that got the manager I told you that got killed in a car accident. When I performed in 1997 at it was called the Festival at the Lake in Oakland, California. Every year they put this event on. And so I performed, and lots of companies, major labels will fly out to meet with artists. They don't seem to do this today, but at that time. So EMI Records, NR of EMI Records, I don't know the name, I forget his name, flew out from New York to Oakland, California to go to the Festival at the Lake event to scout talent. He saw me. I performed about 3 songs on my own with me and my
Okay.
dancer. Finally, he came to me and said, I want to sign you. He said, you're phenomenal. He said, I love your voice. He said, I love your look. He said, I love those songs. He said, who's your manager? Because I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to your manager. Nell, I told you, had died, but he had a nephew named Henry Williams. So Henry Williams at that time took on as representing me, but he still had a normal life. He had a job. So he had to go to work. And so he had another friend of his called, I think her name was um, Esther Lopez. She was a
Okay.
manager, not of me, but of other rappers. And he said, would you go to Angel to this event just in case if somebody was to talk to her, meet her, I need someone to represent her. So she said, sure, no problem. She went, and who would have known that EMI Records was going to come to me that day to want to meet with me and sign me? But it happened, and I was excited. So instead of as smart as I am now, I wish I'd known then, but I didn't know then. Like you said, God had to allow all these things to not happen for a reason. She told him, if you want to sign Angel, you got to sign my act.
Oh,
And that blew my deal because he's like, I don't want to sign your act. I want to
I
sign
want to
Angel.
sign Amy.
I want to sign Angel. Exactly. I want to sign Angel. And so that fell apart because she was trying to block and get in the way, wanted her act to also be signed. I kept going from one obstacle to the next. Every time something close happened, something bad happened. But it allowed me till this day get to be independent where I learned to become my own boss, my own woman, my own business, my own running my own label, and I'm gonna get into all that in a moment. With so many great things started happening as a result. Why God led me to where I am today.
So now, but and I want us to get into the good things there in a minute. I did want to deviate for a quick second. You're still a current voting member on the Grammys, right?
Absolutely. Yes, I've been a voting member since 2015.
Okay, and it's technically the National Academy of Arts, Recording Arts and Sciences. Did I say that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I want to say the correct name. This is what I wonder. Since you've been a part of that academy, have you seen or witnessed any incidences of discrimination towards certain artists based on race, genre? Because a lot of people, especially in the urban genres, feel like the good acts, the good rap acts, don't actually get Grammys. You know, so have you experienced or seen things like that?
I have not because when we vote or, we do things just mainly online, we meet with a lot of voting members. There's like over 27,000 of us, all over the world that are voting members. And so we just listen to each other's music, you know, during the Grammy voting season as we listen to each other's music. And then we just vote for who we feel that is prominent for a nomination. So once it comes around, the first ballot comes out. If your name is on it, 'cause a lot of times your names do not make it on there. But if your name makes it on there, then you vote again to get nominated for a Grammy. So I've always been on that first ballot. All my music as I voted, and others had voted for me. So I've always been pre-nominated for a Grammy. But when the time for the Grammys to come around to be nominated for a Grammy, um, I've never made it that far, and I don't know what goes on with all this stuff that we've been hearing about. All I know is this is how we do it. We just vote for each other, and that's it. I do know that we used to be close because the Grammys did have, a website where we were all together and we're able to share each other's links and conversate and, so on and so forth and talk. And now they, recreated the website, whereas now we're not able to do that anymore. So that was the only thing that was saddening to me because I really like being able to be close to my peers, So
Yes,
I wish they would kind of
absolutely.
bring that back again so we can be connected again. So it just makes it very, more harder and complicated to be more in connection.
Okay, okay. I just wondered how that whole process went because it's something that we really kind of don't know. Like we know what the Grammys is, of course, but we don't really know what goes on in the actual voting process. So okay, all right, cool. So now, after all of those obstacles, let's get to some positivity. Tell me about the good things that you have going on, especially you managing your daughter now. We're managing, producing, writing, every hat. Like you, well, okay. Let me say this: you're kind of like you're playing the role of like a Kris Jenner without doing things that Kris Jenner do. I know you're not going to take your daughter that route, but you get what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. So what happened was in 2017, back in 2016, I was talking to my friend Rodney Cruz, and I said I really want to start my own label. I said because I had been independent all this time and I just put out music, but not actually under a label. So I said I want to start my own label. He said, okay, so let's start one. So he started the label, got an LLC in Hawaii, and then my other partner got an LLC in California. So it's three founders, Ronnie Cruz, Demetrius Gidry, and I myself, Angel Session. So we have a label called Atlas Elite Entertainment. It's not just a label. We do magazines where we interview a lot of celebrities. It's just like we're going on our fifth or sixth issue that we're working on right now. And I would love to have, you presenting our magazine as well, because I love what you do and you're phenomenal. And so we have that, our magazine. We have our music, Atlas Elite Entertainment Music Awards, where we've done that. And we've had a lot of wonderful independent artists up their music in. We've done it about, I think 4 times, this season. And a lot of artists have taken off and gotten, lots of major things happen in their career as a result of beginning an Atlas Elite Entertainment Music Awards. And I started that because I wanted to give back to the artists who it's difficult to get nominated for a Grammy because I'm also a voting member of the NAACP award. So it's difficult to get nominated into that, So we wanted to start something. And also my founding partner, who is also a writer, script writer, he writes scripts. And so he had a deal or still has a deal with Sony Entertainment. And we are also a film company, which we want to be putting out, doing some films. Now, I know right now we were supposed to be working on our film and would have been coming out this year. We was going to be cutting and working on. No, the film would have probably came out next year. We were going to do the film this year until this pandemic happened. So we weren't able to do it because we started on it in 2015, But so we're working still on that until that gets lifted. We're able to go back into starting to shoot this film that he wrote and I co-wrote. Anyway, so my daughter, we signed because I did not want her a part of a lot of things that I hear a lot of artists go through in the industry. And she knows a lot about it. And she, wanted to work with me. So we talked to her and we signed her to Atlas Entertainment. Her name is Shardella Sessions. And she has an album out called The Evolution of Shardella. We released that in 2017. And also a few singles. She is also a songwriter, because she's now branched off and started writing songs of her own. And she's a phenomenal songwriter. She has a new single we're going to be putting out in 2021, and myself, of course. Because I have 13 albums out, but I'm going to release my 14th album. And I have two singles that's going to be coming out in February for me, because I'm going to put hers out first. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear her. Her single's called Everything. Look her name up, Shardella Sessions. Google her. And I can't wait for you guys to hear her newest single. But she does have music currently out there on, Apple Music, iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, and so on and so forth. So yes, I'm really looking
forward. And make sure you send me those links. I can put them like in the description box or in like the comment of the video, so people can click and go check them out.
Okay, great. I definitely will. Because she watches your show too. She loves it.
Oh, nice.
and my other two teams, we watch you a lot. We really love your show.
So I got a question for you. If you were talking to a young man or young lady that wanted to get into the industry, and you had to give them like 3 tips, what would those tips be?
You definitely, first of all, have to have the passion to what you do. I know it's right. You should have talent, because talent is very important. But you definitely have to learn the business. I think it's really important to learn the business. Get a great team of people behind you. So having the passion is very important. You definitely need to learn the business to know what you're getting yourself into, and to meet the right people, have the right team behind you. Because you can't do this alone by yourself, no matter how it seems easy just to get on social media and push your music. But it's not as easy as once you get your music released. Now, what do? You have to learn how to market and how to promote and so on and so forth. You have to have the right team of people behind you. And as a result, doing that, things can come your way, and that's what happened to me, because as a result of doing that, I've had, Google that reached out to me, I, had, so many, Google and so many other things that came my way as a result of my music and what I've learned and what I've done, and with my label at entertainment with the team. And that's just the blessing of it all. You really do have to know what you're doing, and do have the right team of people behind you to believe in you and to work at you hard for you. If you're in it, I guess just to be making money, I think that's short lived, because it's not all about that. It's not easy to do it. And sometimes you're not going to always see, residuals right away, but it will come. You keep working at it. You don't quit. You don't stop. And that's what I believe, because it's happened to me.
Okay. I do have to say this. It was a pleasure speaking with you this evening. This was fun. This was fun. Like, I like the celebrity stuff I do, but I like just talking to people one-on-one too. I just wish, I can't wait until the world opens back up, and then we can like have those one-on-one conversations in an actual studio, and like it you know, we can actually feel the energy off of one another. But I definitely enjoyed this this interview tonight.
Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. And if I could just say again, you know, if anyone can just if there are artists out there, you know, who are looking for exposure, you know, we do have our Addisley Entertainment Music Magazine. We do have ads actually, and they're very reasonable. They're dirt cheap, you know, to be able to get their exposure. We do have a lot of like user views that you look at our magazine. Our magazine is free. We don't sell our magazine. It's online
Oh,
only, you know. Yes, online only, you know, and again, is to give back, you know, to what God has given me, you know, because I love helping people and things like that, you know. But it does cost to be able to put all this together and so on and so forth. So if an artist wants exposure and things like that, you know, if they got a single coming out or something, then they can write info at entertainment.com, and you send them the link and send them the packaging. They can just pick which one they want, how big is their spread they want it to be to get them exposure for their music and so on and so forth.
nice. Okay.
But I'll definitely send you the link so you can check it out as well.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out myself as well. And just if the people want to find you, where can they actually go and find you?
I can be found on Angel Sessions Music. That's Facebook. That's my fan page, and all of my pages are verified, so they can definitely find that that's me. And I'm Angel Sessions Twitter, Angel Sessions on Instagram, and again, it's all verified, and even SoundCloud. I do have some of my music up, even just for people to listen to on SoundCloud. Thank God SoundCloud now is verifying people, so they just verified my page. And I have music on Reverb Nation, but they can definitely find me on angelsessions.com. I have a website called www.angelsessions.com, and our business account at Elite Entertainment. That is www.atlaseliteentertainment.com.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much for speaking with me tonight. You have a great evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.